Welcome back to the Crafty Yarn Barn. I'm so excited today to be able to show you the project that I've been working on. Making these cute little bunnies. They can be something for Easter or a little tag-along present for a baby that you're making, a baby blanket for, and aren't they just darling? Super easy to make. This entire tutorial is geared toward a beginner, but if you're a little more advanced, you'll be able to scroll through this really quick and get to the high points. So how about we head on up to the craft room and get started. But before we do, I would like to ask if you would consider subscribing to my channel, turn on that bell notification so every time that I do a new video that you'll be able to get notified. So let's get going. These are the materials that we're going to need to make our project. I have some Caron Simply Soft yarn. The color of this is soft pink. It's a 4-ply yarn, medium weight, and it calls for a H8 hook, 5mm hook. Got my H hook. I've got some scissors. I got some row markers. I got some yarn needles, and I have some metal yarn darners. I opted to use these metal yarn needles for the most part rather than the plastic. You can still use the plastic, but what I found though is they bent a little bit because of how thick that yarn was in a couple of places when I was trying to sew through the rabbit. You're going to also need some Crafters Polyfill. It's a dry polyester packing. It's a fiber fill and it's ideal for making dolls. So just make sure you're getting the fiber fill rather than the rolls of fiber. First we're going to do our slip knot. This is what attaches to our crochet hook. You take your yarn and you're going to wrap it around your fingers. You're going to take the yarn and push it through the back of the loop that's on your fingers. Slide your fingers out and grab that yarn. Hold on to your yarn tail and hold on to the string of yarn. Hold them both while you hold the loop and you just pull it tight. You can put your crochet hook right on that loop. If you grab that yarn tail and you pull that yarn tail, it tightens right up onto your crochet hook. And we're going to do our foundation chain. A yarn over, that means put your hook underneath the yarn, turn it and pull it through. Yarn over, pull it through, that's number 2. We're going to yarn over, pull it through, that's number 3. So you've got 3 chains, and you're going to chain till you get 38 chains on your hook. So go ahead and chain 38, and I'll see you back here in just a moment. Now I have 38 chains on my hook. I'm going to do single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So this is the first, this is the second. We're going to put our hook through the loop of that second chain. We're going to yarn over and pull it through. Now we have 2 loops on our hook. You're going to yarn over and pull it through both loops. That is your first single crochet into your foundation chain. Now you're going to do single crochets all the way down your foundation chain. I'm going to take my yarn marker, and if you don't have yarn markers, you can use safety pins. You can use small pieces of yarn to mark it, but I always like to use yarn markers because it helps keep your work straight and the stitches on the row are even. You don't have to worry about counting as much. So I marked that first single crochet, and you can see right there the V, the top of that stitch. Now we're going to continue on and do single crochets into every foundation chain back the other way. Stick your hook into the next foundation chain, yarn over, pull it through. You're going to yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops that are on your hook. And that's your second single crochet. And you're going to continue on, and when you get to the end of the row, I'll meet you there and I'll show you how to turn your work. Okay, I've come all the way down my foundation chain, and I'm going to single crochet into the very last chain of that foundation, and that completes row 1. Now to turn my work, you have to go back the other way. You're going to chain 1. You're going to turn your work. Now you're going to do single crochet into the top of that very last stitch that you just made right before you did your chain. You're going to put your hook right in that stitch, yarn over and pull it through, yarn over and pull it through both loops. You need to take a yarn marker, and we're going to mark that stitch that you just made, because when you come back the other way on row 3, this is where you're going to make your last stitch right before you do your chain 1 and turn. So now you're going to single crochet into the top of each stitch. So take your hook, put it right there, and you see where when you put your hook through there's a V right on the top. You're in the top of the stitch, yarn over and pull it through, yarn over and pull it through both loops. And you're going to continue on all the way down until you get to the end, and I'll show you how to make your turn. Okay, down to the end of my second row, and I'm going to remove my row marker, and that's where I'm going to make the last stitch of my second row. Right into the top of that stitch where I removed the row marker, put my hook through, I'm going to yarn over and pull it through, and yarn over again, and that's the last single crochet of row 2. To make the turn, you need to chain 1, turn your work, and you're going to go back the other way. So put your hook right into the top of that single crochet that you just made right before, make a single crochet, and you're going to put your yarn marker right there. Let me pull my yarn out a little bit so that you can see. You're going to put your yarn marker right there in that V, the top of that stitch that you just made, that single crochet, and that's the last stitch on the following row. Pull my yarn out so we don't lose our spot. Okay, let's talk about the length and the width of your project. Now this foundation chain was 38 chains, and then the last chain, that 38th chain, is actually your side post here. So you have 37 foundation chains, 37 single crochets in row 1 and row 2. This measures out to 9 inches long. Okay, so you're going to make a square. So you're going to keep crocheting rows until you get 9 inches tall. And the way to determine when you've reached a square, if you keep watching, I'll show you how to do that. You won't have to worry about how many rows you're going to make, or you don't even have to worry about if you have a ruler to be able to measure it or not. Quick and easy, simple way. Keep watching and I'll show you in just a moment. Okay, I've made my square. On my measuring table, I've measured it out and it's 9 inches wide and 9 inches tall. Now a quick trick for you to be able to figure out if you've made a square if you don't have a ruler is if you take this corner and lay it over where it's flat against the edging of the bottom and meet the corner of the top. And it lays out like a triangle where all sides are equal. So that's how you know that you've made a square. Now that our square is made, we're going to fasten it off. Let me remove my row marker here. I'm going to go in the top of that last single crochet, do a single crochet. I'm going to snip my end, and I'm going to leave a pretty good sized tail on the end of it so that I can sew off my work and help close it up. Now I'm going to yarn over, pull it through, and I'm going to fasten it off by pulling the yarn all the way through, and I'm going to pull it tight. And I've already taken my yarn needle and I've sewed my tail end on this other side. Okay, for the next step, we're going to make the head of the bunny and the ears of the bunny. I'm going to use a white because it contrasts really well with this pink so that you see what I'm going to do. And that's only for demonstration purposes only. You need to actually use the same color yarn that you're using to make your rabbit because you don't want this to show up. I'm only doing this with the white so that you can follow along and see the steps that I'm about to take. Cut your yarn pretty lengthy because you're going to want it to be long to help you sew off your project. We're going to find the middle of our square and we're going to mark it. Fold it over, And I'm going to take my row marker and I'm going to mark right there where the middle is on both sides. Now I'm going to turn it and I'm going to fold it the other way. And I'm going to mark it again. So we're going to find the middle and we're going to mark it. And it's really important to find your middles and mark them. But for the next step, we're going to close this up and make the head of our bunny. These right here are going to be our ears. We're going to take our yarn needle with our long string of yarn and we're going to weave back and forth from this point to this point. So take your yarn needle. I'm going to go right through the same loop where that yarn marker is. It'll leave me a long string hanging that way. If you follow the ridge of that single crochet, you'll be straight. Now you've sewn all the way across, and now what you're going to do is you're going to sew from there to the middle, and then you're going to turn and go back the other way. And when you're done, you're going to have a long tail hanging out there, and you're going to have this tail hanging out on this end. The trick to it is laying it down, and you're going to follow right along and use that string as a guide. I'm going to lay it straight there, and I'm going to take my needle. I'm going to go into about right here. I'm going to hold that yarn onto the pink, using it as a guide to follow. We'll put that needle right through there because we're trying to make our way straight to the middle. Okay, you can see I changed out my yarn for pink yarn because I wanted it to blend in. Like I said, I was only using that white for demonstration purposes. So I've went ahead and I've finished sewing, weaving in that yarn. It's like a triangle. So I'm going to take off my yarn markers. So you're going to hold it here and you're going to see how it's bunching up your material on that string. As you pull those two pieces of yarn, you see what's happening? It's creating a little pocket right here. So keep pulling on those strings and you're creating this pocket. You're going to kind of form it. See what's happening here? That's the head. So go ahead and get you a little bit of that polyfill. You're going to stuff it into that little space there it's making, and grab your yarn and keep pulling it tight. So we're going to take our ears, we want to form them where they're going the other way. See your little head? I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take my string and I'm going to tie it off. I'm going to squeeze it as tight as I can, I possibly can, without breaking it. Okay, I went ahead and pulled out my metal yarn darners rather than the plastic because this looks like it's going to need a little sturdier needle here. Now I've got my ears pointed in the right direction. Now I'm going to use my needle, and I've put one of those long strings on my needle, and I'm going to start sewing right here in the back of the head to close that off. See, there's a little hole where you've put the polyfill in and you can see it, and I'm going to close it off, and you're not going to be able to see that crochet yarn once we're done. Push that through there, and you see where it's about to close up. And that pink, it's going to blend in really well. It's already been closed up. So I'm going to do that just a couple more times. Make sure my ear is turned the way I'm wanting it to look for my front of my bunny. Because once I start sewing that on here, sewing that together, it's going to be difficult to change the way those ears look. And push that needle through. I'm going to do that a few more times, and I'll see you back here in just a second. I think that's pretty good for the face. So a way to hide this piece of yarn is we're going to take it and we're just going to stick it all the way through to the front of its face, pull it out, and we're going to push down on its head, clip it as close as we can without cutting our bunny, and then we're going to let it go, and that yarn tail is lost right in the middle of the bunny's head there. You're not even going to be able to see it. Now we've got our other tail that's on the other side. We're going to use this to start sewing up the back of our bunny. We're going to match it up with the rows on the other opposite side. Try to make sure our bunny is sewed together as even as we possibly can get it. I'm going to take a row marker, or a safety pin would work, and I'm going to try to line it up a little bit. And that's just going to give us a guide, I believe. And then we're just going to take our edges and go back and forth all the way down the back of the bunny at each stitch, because we're going to fill this with polyfill as well. And I'll see you in just a few minutes. Okay, now I got to the end, and what I like to do, I go ahead and I like to tie that off there one time. And then what I'm going to do is take one and sew it this way, and the hole that's left open here, I'm going to fill it with polyfill, take the other piece of yarn and sew this way. So it's going to be sewed off like that on the bottom. Okay, I'm down to the end, and what I'm going to do is turn back the other way, and I'm going to that tail into the bottom stitching of the bunny. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it just a little bit, gently snip it off, and when I do, squeeze it, and then the tail of that will be lost inside the bunny. Now you need to decide where you want your eyes, how you want them to look. I'm just going to put a little bitty slant looking piece. I'm going to do it loose. I don't want to do it too tight because I don't want it to mess up the form of my little bunny there. I'm going to pull that, snip it, and what I'm going to do is take this, I'm going to stick it way down here. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to snip it close. And see, you don't even see it in there. Now you got one little eye. We've got his eyes on, his nose on, and now it's time to dress him up. We can put some embellishments on him. You can put some ribbon around its neck, put a little flower on top of its head, or a little star, whatever you want to do to dress your little bunny up. I'm really pleased with how cute they came out. I made a slip stitch cord and tied a little bow around their neck, made a pom-pom and put them on their cute little behind. And that's what helps stitch them up. And on this blue one, I use black yarn for the nose and eyes. I don't know that I like the black so much as I like the tan. It's a little bit too contrasting, but they turned out so super cute. Aren't they just totally darling? In the comment section down below, I have links on how to make a pom-pom, either with a pom-pom maker or a DIY pom-pom with things you have in your home. And I also have a link to how to make this slip stitch cord. Super easy to make. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you've liked it, please be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification so you get notified every time I make a video. And I look forward to making more projects like this in the future. Have a great, wonderful day and happy Easter. See you next time.